Okay, well, I thought I'd make a little video on the operation of a gramophone or phonograph. Now, this is a video I've been planning to make for a while, and in fact I had a comment this morning asking me about the basic operation, so I thought this was a good opportunity to do it. These are just my thoughts, these are just how I view things. I'm sure there will be differences of opinion, and other people will have other information. So if you've got any other comments or anything you'd like to say about the operation of machines like this, then please do leave a note in the comments. And I just wanted to start with going around the various components inside. I'm going to start with the lid stay. Now this keeps the lid up, and this is a HMV 162 gramophone, which is quite a lot like the American Victor Victrolas. But there are obviously lots of different variations of machines. So anyway, on this particular one, lid stays there. So if I lift it, it releases down like so. And then if I lift it up again, it should lock into position. Now it doesn't always do so, and that is a common feature actually with these old machines. The lid stays often don't work very well. They get stuck, they don't lock. So just be aware of that one. Make sure the lid is actually staying up before you actually let go of it with your hand. Now going around the various items in this machine, we've got the big thing here. This is the platter or the turntable. This is the tone arm, and the thing on the end there is the sound box or reproducer. Also we've got some little tins there, or little trays there for needles, and we have a brake there, brake control there. This machine actually has an automatic brake as well, which is there, but as you can see I've disconnected it. I'm not going to use it for this video. And it also has a speed control. Now this also has a speed indicator. Most machines don't have speed indicators. This one does. The speed controls do vary. They're often little levers as opposed to a little knob like on this one. Now just a little note on the needle trays. This one at the back here with a smaller hole is for used needles. These two at the front here are for fresh needles. Now if you're used to modern record players, you may be thinking, why do we have used needles and fresh needles? Surely you have a needle and that's it, just the one. But actually with these machines you change the needle after every play of the record. So needles were bought in tins of usually about 200, and you literally threw the needle away after each play. And by convention the used ones go in here, and these would be different sorts of fresh needles. And the needles came in different thicknesses actually. The thicker the needle, the louder the machine played. Because as you've probably noticed, I haven't mentioned volume control, because this machine has no volume control really, although there are doors at the front which I'll just show you. Now not all machines have doors like this, but these doors can also be used as volume control. Open the doors to make it louder, close the doors to make it quieter. Okay, so I'm now going to wind the machine. Now when the machine is wound down, as it is now, the crank is very easy to turn. It should turn easily with one hand. Now different machines have different fills, and also different machines will take different amounts of winding. So it's very difficult to give any sort of advice or even strong guidance on how much to wind a machine like this. What I tend to do with a machine that I'm unfamiliar with is wind it until it starts to feel a bit stiff, and then try a record. And you should find that after you've tried it a few times, played a few records, you get the hang of how much winding it needs in order to play a whole record. What I should say though is that it should never be really difficult to turn this handle. The handle will become stiffer the more you wind the machine, but you should never feel like you're forcing it. Once you get to the point where it's too stiff to wind easily, then that, I think, is a very good place to stop. It's better to underwind a machine rather than overwind it. The springs can only take so much winding. And it's also worth noting that depending on the mechanical condition of the machine, the springs may be in various states. They may be worn out, they may be all caked up with old grease. So sometimes it's just not possible to get a machine to play a whole record. And sometimes, like clocks when they're wound, springs will break. The springs in these machines are 80, 90, 100, more than 100 years old. They don't last forever, and even with careful use, a spring can break. Okay, so the machine is wound now, so I'm going to fit a needle. So I just wanted to spend a little bit more time talking about needles. Now, I've got one here, and the first thing to note is that it's sharp. It's not called a needle for nothing. Be aware that needles will hurt if you accidentally poke yourself with them. They will even draw blood. So just be careful with them. They are not called needles for nothing. Now, the other issue really is where do you get needles from? Now, quite often with old machines, you'll find little tins like this. These are the original vintage tins. These often contain needles. There may not be many needles in the tin. Sometimes they're just empty. Use each needle once only, as it says there. You may also find that the needles are rusty. Don't want to be using rusty needles. And you may also find, like here, these are loud tone needles. These are the thicker ones. Yeah, there's plenty there, but I don't really like using loud tone needles. They're not good for records really, or not as good for records as the softer ones. And even these are a little bit rusty. And the other issue with using needles from old tins like this is you really don't know whether they're actually new needles or whether they are old needles which people have just cleared out and put back in the tins, which does happen. And although it's possible to work out if a needle is new or not, that's more detail than for this video. What I would recommend is actually buying new needles online. So here's a bag of new needles that I've bought. There were 100 soft tone needles in here. They weren't hugely expensive. It's very easy to buy needles. This is by far the safest way to get needles. But you know, these are still sharp. They're just as sharp as the vintage ones, so still be careful. Now the needle goes in here. And what I'm going to do, just for the purposes of this demonstration, is take the sound box or reproducer off and grab a fresh needle and show how it goes in. So basically there's a hole in the end there, and there's a little screw here. So if I make sure the screw is unwound or unscrewed, needle pops in like so, and then I can tighten it up. Now I wouldn't recommend taking the sound box off unless you really need to, unless you've got a really good reason for doing it. You certainly don't need to take it off in order to change the needle. So if I take the needle out again, put the sound box back on, and then it's easy enough just to put the needle in. And there we are, there is the needle in. Next I need a record, and for this demonstration I'm going to use this Regal record here. So just in case there's any confusion, when I'm talking about 78s, I'm talking about these old hard shellac records. Now these are quite thick, they're quite heavy, they don't flex really, they're quite brittle actually, and it's quite easy to take a chunk out of them or to get a big crack across them. So that's what I mean. There are some later 78s made out of vinyl or other plastics which are not suitable for use on a machine like this. I do talk a bit more about suitability of records. What is definitely worth recognizing is that more modern vinyl records like this 45, which flexes and is much thinner and lighter, and this 33 1/3, which is the same. These are definitely not suitable for playing on a machine like this. And even if this record was marked 78 RPM somewhere, if it was thin and flexible like this, it would not be suitable. Now, this record is a similar vintage to the machine. The machine is from the sort of mid to late 1920s. This record is going to be of a similar vintage, maybe a little bit earlier. Now, it's generally considered that you should play records which are from approximately the same date as the machine you're playing on. So although 78 records came in the very late 19th century, and in some countries were made all the way up until the 1960s, it's generally not considered a good idea to play a 1950s record on, say, a 1910 machine. Playing older records on later machines I think is less of an issue, but certainly playing later records on earlier machines is considered not good for the record. So that just goes on the turntable like that. So the next thing to do is to release the brake, like so. If I just stop it again, it is tempting to think that I should be putting the needle on the record like so before starting it up, but in actual fact that doesn't work very well, or at all in a lot of cases, because the weight of this is just too much to allow the record to get started. So it's important that the record is started first. Now the record is up to speed now, and I need to put the needle on the record, and if I just grab it like so. Now sometimes people mistakenly put it down over here on the basis that, well, the tone arm's here, so you bring it round like so, but that's wrong. It does not go down there, it goes down over here. What you do is you lower it gently down and then slide it into the first groove, and you can feel it click in. Now if the record did start slowing down, I could actually just give it a few more winds. And that's why it's not so important to wind the machine fully up to begin with. So you can hear this is slowing down, doesn't sound right. So at the end the needle will just sit in the groove like so, unless there's a working auto stop. Now sometimes it will jump out and run across the record and cause a nasty scratch on the label, which is unfortunate, so watch out for that one. But essentially all you need to do at this stage is just flick the lever here to stop it, and that lever might be in a different place. It might be over the other side of the turntable down here on some machines. Then the next thing to do is actually to flip this up and to remove the old needle. Now these are single-use needles, they are sharp, so be careful with them when you remove them. It's very easy to prick your finger on them when you're fitting or removing them. But anyway, remove the used needle and put it in the used needle pot if you've got one, or otherwise dispose of it safely. And then the operation for playing the next record is the same. So if I wanted to play the other side, I flip it over, I would wind it again to a sufficient amount of winding for this particular machine, and then I would fit a new needle and I would place it on this side of the record very carefully once the record was running. Anyway, that's the basic operation. I'm sure I've forgotten a few things. There are definitely going to be some opinions as to doing things a bit differently, but if you'd like to leave me a comment or a question or an opinion, then please do. If you'd like to give me a like, that'd be great too. And if you've got any issues with the machine or your machine slowing down or stopping whilst playing, then I have this little video here with a few hints and tips as well. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.